Everybody. So, welcome to week 3 of the Heal Your IBS program. And this week is all about rebalancing. So, I've done a slightly different video format this week. I decided to use some slides this time and so to share the information more visually with you. So, I'm going to crack on and let me know what you think. Okay, so this week, because it's week 3 of the Heal Your IBS program, we've done remove and we've done relieve. So now it's time to rebalance. We want to understand how we're going to calm our gut in order to complete the healing process and to heal it. And we're also going to look a bit more in detail about the gut-brain axis, which I've mentioned in the workshop before, but also how your mind influences your gut health. So what's really important to understand is this concept that your brain and your gut are connected. And I think we don't always think of this because we think of them as two distinct systems. We've got our digestive system on one side and we've got our nervous system on the other side. But actually, although they are two distinct systems, they are connected and they interact and influence each other all the time. They're in constant communication with each other. And this has a lot of impact, not just on the digestive system and the nervous system, but also on the rest of our body as well, which we're going to understand a bit more about today. And what's important to understand is that this communication between the gut and the brain is what we call bidirectional. So your brain talks to your gut and the gut talks to the brain. They both talk to each other. And in fact, it's very often the gut sends more information up to the brain than the other way around. So it's really important that we understand how the two systems interrelate and communicate with each other so that we can support both and obviously ultimately heal our IBS. So very brief rundown of the digestive system because I've mentioned it in the video today. But I think, as you already know, because we've talked about it so much over the last couple of weeks, but everything in the digestive system, it basically covers everything from the mouth to the anus. It's about ingesting when we eat something, digesting it when we break it down, absorbing nutrients, and then excreting the waste. And there's a large network of blood vessels and neurons all the way through the digestive system. And in fact, when we're a fetus and we're developing in the mother's stomach, or womb, the nerve endings that on the spinal cord that go from the base of the spinal cord, vagus nerve, right into the digestive tract and the brain are really intimately connected. They're formed from one specific nerve and set of neurons. So they're really connected. And then you've also got within the digestive system, as you know, we've talked about these before in a bit of detail already, but you've got your digestive juices, your digestive enzymes, you've got the microbes that live in your digestive system, and also your hormones that you're making within the digestive system. So there's lots going on in the digestive system, but hopefully some of this is now starting to be a bit more familiar to you. So then we've got the nervous system, which may be a system you haven't really come across in much detail since your days at school doing biology. But we know that, in summary, the nervous system, it's a network of fibers. So it spans through the whole body. And then the nervous system is not just there for sort of feeling and receiving signals, it's also for processing and for movement as well. And we've got different ways of categorizing parts of the nervous system. So you've got the autonomic nervous system, and this works automatically and involuntarily. We've got no control over it. So this will be things like when our heart beats and when we're breathing. Normally our heartbeat, we don't control that. We don't tell our heart when to beat. It just happens automatically. So that's part of the autonomic nervous system. And then you've got obviously the nervous system that we do control when we're choosing to move things, we're choosing to feel things and touch things. We've then got within the nervous system two other categories, which is the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. And these are the two categories that really, are important to us as we're looking at healing our IBS. So the sympathetic is our fight and flight mode, which I'm going to talk about in more detail later on, but you may have come across this phrase already. So you've got the sympathetic, which is fight and flight mode, and then you've got the parasympathetic, which is our rest and digest mode. And obviously you can imagine that's the mode that we want to be in most of the time to support our digestive system and to enable our IBS to be healed. So like I said, it's gut-brain axis. It is really important when we're looking at our IBS. It plays such a huge role in IBS, in driving symptoms, in triggering symptoms, and it really should be part of your healing process, your healing journey, is to really consider this gut-brain axis. A lot of us are going to find that our symptoms definitely are either triggered or made worse during stressful times. So this communication highway between these two systems is really important. And that's basically what the gut-brain axis means. It just means the communication between these two systems. So what I want you to think about, just to make it feel a bit more real, is when you're really nervous about something and you might get butterflies in your stomach because you're really nervous about something. Or we always say, oh, I've got a gut feeling about this. My gut's telling me this isn't a good thing to do. And then also sometimes when we're quite stressed, we can feel a bit sick. So all these things are really demonstrating how connected the gut and the brain are. So, the fact that we're a bit nervous and we get butterflies in our stomach, obviously our stomach doesn't know we're nervous. The brain is telling it that we're nervous. And it's the same when you've got a gut feeling about something. So I just love those concepts to give you an idea of what I mean by this connection. But there's also other things as well. So, that's from the brain down to the gut, but thinking about the other way, from the gut up to the brain. If we've got imbalances in the microbes and in the digestive juices in our bodies and how that's working, that can really impact our mental well-being. So it can cause memory issues, sleep issues, brain fog. So gut issues can really be an early signal of someone struggling with a neurodegenerative disease as well. So when there've been studies done on people with conditions, like dementia or Parkinson's and things like that, actually they have got a history of gut issues. So somewhere along the line, this issue of the gut is triggering issues with the brain as well. So we've got two different ways that the gut and the brain are connected. So you've got this physical connection, and this is, like I said earlier in the introduction, this is the nerve that goes from the brain all the way down the spine and it finishes in the gut. And this is called the vagus nerve. And there's 500 million, I need to repeat that because it's a lot, 500 million neurons within the vagus nerve that connect the brain to the gut. So we just know how important and significant this connection and this relationship between the brain and the gut are, because our bodies have got such strong connections, physically with all these nerves and neurons to it, that it must be a really significant communication pathway. So anything that's going on in the brain automatically travels down the spinal cord and physically connects with the gut and vice versa. But there's also a biochemical connection. And so by that, we mean that the chemical messengers, the neurotransmitters and the hormones in our body, that in our gut and our brain, that regulate both systems. So specifically with that is serotonin. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter that you might have heard of. It's our feel-good hormone. It makes us feel happy. It makes us feel content. And serotonin also gets converted into melatonin, which I think a lot of you will be very familiar with. Melatonin is something that is our sleep hormone. It helps us to sleep. So serotonin is a really important neurotransmitter. And we actually make about 95% of our serotonin in our gut. So our gut is making the serotonin and it's traveling up the vagus nerve, up to the brain to help us to feel good, and ultimately later on in the day to convert to melatonin and help us to sleep. We've also got GABA on here. GABA is another lovely neurotransmitter, a lovely messenger for the brain. It's very calming. So somebody with a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress might actually be quite low in GABA. So we need to kind of support their natural GABA production. So these hormones, along with other hormones such as cortisol and adrenaline, which are stress hormones, they can really impact the gut. So you can see how these two systems are communicating all the time, either physically through the neurons or biochemically through these neurotransmitters. So just a quick run through of how poor gut health is going to impact your mental well-being. So if your gut health isn't good, and if you're struggling with things like IBS, with dysbiosis and things like that, it's going to affect your mental well-being in lots of really different ways, but quite impactful ways, to things like disturbed sleep, sugar cravings. If you're craving sugar, that can often be a sign of dysbiosis, of imbalance in the gut microbe. Low mood and anxiety, because again, if your gut's not happy, it's not making the serotonin, so you're not going to get that feel-good feeling from the serotonin in your brain. It can impact your appetite control. You know, when our gut health isn't good, sometimes that can make us particularly hungry, or it can go the other way and make us not hungry. So that's going to really impact our mental well-being. And also things like fatigue and low energy can be caused by gut health, but we would put them down to more mental well-being symptom. And then frequent headaches and migraines can also sometimes be attributed to gut issues. So you can see how the gut can really impact mental well-being. So if you're somebody that's got IBS, are any of these symptoms familiar to you as well? And maybe you hadn't connected the dots and thought that your bad sleep or your sugar cravings are a result of your bad gut health and your IBS, but actually that could very well be a big driver for you. Then we've got how our mental well-being, our brain impacts our gut health. So these are obviously things that we're a bit more familiar with on the IBS program. Things like diarrhea, constipation, bloating, cramping, acid reflux. All these things can be triggered by stress in the brain, sending through the vagus nerve or through increases in adrenaline and cortisol into the gut, and it can trigger a lot of these symptoms that we associate with IBS. They can also create an increase in inflammation. When we're very stressed, our inflammation markers all go up. And when the gut is inflamed, it's going to cause issues with things like food intolerances and bloating. And it's also going to cause a condition called leaky gut, which we have touched on before. And I'm going to talk about more in the next workshop, although I think we did talk about it in the last workshop as well. So just if you missed it, I can go through it again. So these are ways that your mental well-being can actually impact your gut. So again, if you've got any of these symptoms, it might be worth thinking, are they stress driven? Are they driven by poor mental health, mental well-being, I should say, as opposed to a gut issue directly? So just a note here on the gut microbes, we are going to talk more about our gut microbes in week 4, which is about replaced, because then we want to be replacing the good microbes in our gut. But just so that you understand what our microbes are doing, because obviously we do talk about them all the way through the 4-week program. So microbes are important because they help you to absorb crucial nutrients. They actually are part of the digestion process. So if your microbes are in balance and you haven't got enough of the good microbes in your gut, you're not going to be breaking down and therefore absorbing some crucial nutrients. And this can then have a knock-on effect, because when we want to make neurotransmitters like serotonin or melatonin or GABA or anything like that, we need to have the building blocks within our bodies to make them. It's a bit like having a set of Lego, and you put all the pieces together to make the neurotransmitter, the serotonin or whatever it might be. When you've got dysbiosis and you haven't got enough of the friendly bacteria in your gut, and you're not absorbing enough crucial nutrient, it's possible you therefore are missing some of the Lego pieces to make your neurotransmitters. So you can see how having a gut dysbiosis and a problem with the microbes in your gut can actually really impact your mental well-being. So this is really important. So what we want to be aware of is how we can rebalance. So we're talking this week about rebalancing our gut for healing our IBS. So it's important to understand a bit more about stress and how stress can really impact our gut health. So we want to think about how things like cortisol and adrenaline could be really impactful and really damaging for our gut health. So this is where I'm going to explain to you a bit more about fight and flight mode with this lovely picture to inspire me. So fight and flight mode. If we go back to when we were cave women and we were living on the savannah, the African plains, maybe 20,000, 30,000 years ago, we would spend most of our time in rest and digest mode. And we would trip into fight and flight mode when we were presented with an immediate danger. For an example here, a woolly mammoth coming to attack us, or a dinosaur, although I'm sure the historians amongst you would tell me that there's no dinosaurs when there were people. But anyway, you get the point. We weren't actually faced with life or death situation on a regular daily basis or hourly basis, but when there was a big threat, we would go into fight and flight mode, and that would increase our adrenaline, increase our cortisol to help us, to protect us, and to give us that energy and that urge to protect ourselves and to get away. So when we went into fight and flight mode, when we were on the African plains, these are the things that our body would do to protect us. Our pupils would dilate, so we had a wider field of vision to see any threats. Our lungs would dilate, so we could take more oxygen in. Our guts, this is the crucial one for IBS, our guts would stop digesting. So you might have found that if you were suddenly put in fight and flight mode and you were suddenly confronted with a woolly mammoth about to eat you or a saber-toothed tiger, that you might suddenly empty your bowels or your bladder really, really urgently, and everything would just shut down because it's considered non-essential at that precise moment in time. You have to just get out of that situation and be as light as possible to run away from the predator. So your guts will stop digesting and probably empty really quickly. Anything that you had stored in energy in your muscles would get dumped to sugar straight away so that the body can again use that for energy to get away from whatever the threat was. Your heart rate would increase, your blood pressure would increase, which again, these are really important for being aware of the impact of stress on the rest of our bodies, on our cardiovascular health and our general health, our metabolic health. You can see how fight and flight mode really impacts multiple systems in the body, but specifically for today, obviously, how it's just impacting the gut. So this would happen maybe, once a day or once every couple of days when we were cavemen out on the savannah plain. The problem is that modern life has moved on so quickly, and our genetics, our bodies haven't actually kept up with the changes that we've gone through. So a person today is confronted with more images and more information than a person just 400 years ago. Like thousands of times more information. So everybody is seeing so much information. We're being pounded with different multi-sensory information coming through, be it visual or audio, whether we're working, whether we're doing things, we're preparing food, whatever it is. There's so many stimulants going on all the time, and our bodies haven't caught up with the way our modern life is. So when we do feel a bit harassed and a bit stressed because we're running for a bus, or we've got a deadline with a boss, or we've got a presentation to do, or maybe the kids are arguing in the car, or you're having an argument with your partner, whatever it is, all these little things that happen on a daily basis put us into fight and flight mode and keep us there, and we can't get out of it. So we are spending much more time in this flight and flight mode that we were genetically designed to cope with. And that puts a lot of pressure on all these body parts. Things even like watching a stressful program on TV can put you into fight and flight mode. So your brain can't distinguish between a real genuine threat, like a threat to life, a threat to your well-being, and a threat, just something that's a bit stimulating or maybe a little bit stressful that you're going through. It just puts you into this fight and flight mode straight away. So when you're in this fight and flight mode on a constant basis, and much more basis than you were ever designed to be, you can really think about how this is going to impact your gut and therefore drive your IBS. Because if your digestive system is being told constantly every day and multiple times a day that it's in fight and flight mode, it's going to slow your whole digestive system down. It's going to shut things off. So we stop digesting food efficiently and we start to get bloated and we get constipated. Or because we can see that there's a massive perceived threat coming, or we think there is, we empty everything and we get diarrhea, we get an urgency to go. So it can go one of two ways. But when everything shuts down, we're also producing less gastric juices. So we're producing less digestive enzymes, we're producing less stomach acid, we're producing less bile to break things down as well. And so that means that we become more susceptible again to bloating, to poor digestion, to food intolerances, to inflammation in the gut. All our muscles tense. So again, if we're very stressed all the time, our muscles will tense, and that can really cause issues with cramping and pain. And this constant level of stress in the gut, this low level stress that's just constantly there and never seems to go away, just causes low level but constant inflammation in the gut. And this is what ultimately can be driving a lot of our IBS symptoms. So it's really worth trying to keep the body in rest and digest mode as much as possible. And of course, there's always going to be stressful things in life. There's always, well, life gets in the way and something genuinely is stressful, and we can't avoid that. But what we can do is we can try and support the body to go into rest and digest as much as possible, and to avoid getting into this fight and flight mode wherever we can. So what can we do to support the gut-brain connection, to rebalance everything, to help the gut stay nice and calm, to relieve our IBS? I've got lots of tips here for you. Some of them we've already seen in Remove and Relieve, and some of them will be coming again in Replace next week. But just to give you an overview, again, to really support the body as it, as you're trying to keep out of fight and flight mode and more in rest and digest mode. So thinking of things like high fiber foods, these help to feed all the friendly bacteria, and the friendly bacteria what we need to make serotonin and GABA and melatonin. So we want to have plenty of good bacteria in our guts, to eat lots of fiber for that. Fermented foods are really good. We've talked about fermented foods before. They're coming up again next week in more detail, but they will help with reducing bloating and supporting the friendly bacteria again. Omega-3, so eating lots of healthy fats from oily fish, from nuts, from seeds and olive oil. These can all really help to reduce inflammation. We know that all these foods are really anti-inflammatory. So they help to reduce inflammation in the gut. They also help to improve our cognition and our concentration. So that again is going to help you to feel less stressed and to get more into rest and digest mode. Protein's another one that's really important. So trying to make sure you're getting a nice mix of protein over the day. Those of you in my membership and Eat Better, Feel Better, you're going to know all I talk about all the time is fiber and protein, fiber and protein. We need protein to give us all the building blocks, all those Lego pieces for our neurotransmitters. A lot of them are protein. So make sure you're getting some really good quality protein to have all the neurotransmitters, again, to support your mental well-being, your gut-brain axis, and to keep out of fight and flight mode. And then things like polyphenols. So these are things like antioxidants, really, that have come from plants. So green tea and coffee are nice examples of those, and they can help to boost mental well-being, but they also feed our gut bacteria. So again, happy gut. I think you know by now, we covered all of these in detail in Remove in week 1, but we know that these foods all drive inflammation in the gut and they will trigger stress. So do try to keep cutting down, be, really consistent with this. If you take one thing away from the 4 weeks, it's cutting out all of these. So ultra processed foods, sugar, artificial sweeteners, alcohol, and toxic fats. We talked about those loads. So what I do want to talk a bit more about is how to eat. So part of keeping the body in rest and digest mode is eating in an efficient way, and eating in a way that encourages rest and digest. So the first thing we want to think about is intermittent fasting. And I have talked about this again in Remove. I think we talked about this. Having a 12 to 14-hour fasting window from dinner until breakfast the next day is going to help to get the body into rest and digest. It's really good for digestion, and it helps also to promote brain flushing. So we know that several times over the night when we're asleep, the brain has a special fluid that flushes through and helps to clear out toxins. So obviously a healthy, happy brain is going to be less inflammatory. It's going to send less inflammatory signals down to the gut. It's going to be much calmer, and that's going to benefit the gut and hopefully heal your IBS. So trying intermittent fasting to allow digestion and for the brain to have a good rest and digest and clear out and do a bit of housekeeping is always really good. Stick to regular meal times. Our hormones love routine, and that's going to help with digestion because it's going to help give the body regularity to boost and know when to secrete bile and gastric juices. It's going to help it to make the digestive enzymes that we need. And it's going to help to control things like leptin and ghrelin, your hunger and satiety hormones, to help you feel full and hungry at the right time. So that's also going to help. Long periods of starving or over feasting still manage to put the body into fight and flight mode, which we're trying to avoid. And then also you want to balance your blood sugar. So balancing your blood sugar is key to everything. It's one of the first things that we do in Eat Better, Feel Better. Whether you're a one-to-one client or a member, it's always blood sugar balance is one of the first things we do, because blood sugar balance is so important to reducing inflammation, supporting our energy and metabolism and our cognitive function. And also when we're working on a blood sugar balanced diet, we're naturally getting more fiber and protein in the diet, which is going to be so beneficial for IBS as well. So thinking about blood sugar balance is another really good thing to do to help rebalance your gut over healing your IBS. So we've talked a lot about food over the 3 weeks, and we will talk about food a lot next week as well. So I wanted to take this opportunity for Rebalance Week to talk about ways that we can support our IBS and our gut and brain connection through lifestyle habits, because these sometimes get overlooked, but they're so impactful on reducing and alleviating IBS. So there will be some here that will really resonate with you. And if you can try and implement some of them, then I think you will find real benefits to that. So I've touched a little bit on having a regular daily routine. Like I say, your body loves routine. So if you can get up around the same time every day, have breakfast, lunch, and dinner around the same time every day, go to bed around the same time, all these things are going to help. The intermittent fast is going to help as well. So having that kind of regularity really helps to support healthy digestion and healthy gut-brain axis as well. So it's going to really help with balance. Bedtime self-care. So this is really important because when we sleep better, we give our body that rest and digest time to heal the gut. It's a real healing time for the body. And self-care at bedtime is a really lovely way to signal to the brain and to the gut, do you know what? We're getting ready for bed. We're going to sleep soon. It's time to wind down, increase melatonin production, reduce cortisol, which is our stress hormone, and get ready for bed. So having a lovely bedtime self-care routine can be really beneficial. And I will add my my handout for bedtime self-care on this module for you. There's some really lovely tips on there. Get outside. You know, I can't overemphasize how important it is to be in nature, to be outside, get sunlight on your face as much as you can, natural daylight. Again, really important for balancing your cortisol, for keeping your cortisol in the right levels. We need cortisol because it gives us our get up and go in the morning. It gives us our zest for life, our energy. But at the same time, we don't want too much cortisol that we're driving inflammation and impacting our gut health. So it's that really fine balance. And being outside in nature can be really helpful for that. Move. So doing some exercise, doing some movement. The movement videos should be coming on this week for you as well. So doing some lovely movement to stretch and to help with digestive process to get everything moving. But even just gentle walking can be beneficial, or stretching can be great as well. But any kind of movement that you're going to do on a regular basis is going to help you. Finding a hobby you enjoy, just getting that time to relax the brain and switch off all the chatter, all the background noise that goes on in the brain all the time. Again, when you're calming the brain, you're calming the gut. So do try and take time for things that you enjoy, things that relax you, trying to have a work-life boundary. Breath work and mindfulness can be great for supporting that gut-brain axis. You know, really good breathing really stimulates the vagus nerve. So that really big nerve that we talked about that connects the brain to the gut, the vagus nerve with all those neurons in it, that is really impacted by good breath work. So when we're breathing well and we're taking like some mindfulness, some simple meditation, that can really help to relax the vagus nerve, and that can really, really reduce the impact of IBS. So it is worth trying some of that. If you'd like some videos, I've got some meditation videos on the membership. If you'd like to see them, I can share them with you. It's not a problem. Essential oils are another lovely one. You can rub things like calming oils on your gut and just rub it through the skin, and that can really penetrate and help. Things like lavender oil is really lovely. Eucalyptus, ginger is great as well. So maybe rubbing some ginger on your skin. You have to use a carrier oil with essential oil. Don't just put the essential oil straight onto your skin. It can irritate. So you need a carrier oil. But again, if you'd like more information, I've got some information on essential oils. I will upload it onto the module for you. And talking, you know, talking can be so helpful if you're stressed, if there's things going on, or just to get out a problem shared is a problem halved, you know. So talk, relax, and connect with people. All these things really help to keep the body in rest and digest mode and to reduce the time we're spending in fight and flight mode, which ultimately will really help you to rebalance and to heal your IBS. So I'm going to speak again about some supplements. Some of these we've talked about before, but some of them are going to be new ones. So just to remind you, I think you know this already, we've talked about it, but supplements supplement a healthy lifestyle and diet. They don't replace it. But we know that it's really hard to get all the nutrients that we need now in our food for various reasons that you can read on the slide. So do think about what your symptoms are and what your needs are and address possible deficiencies. If you're not sure, we can do a functional blood test for you and find out where you're low. And there's other ways that we can assess as well. But things like B vitamins, vitamin C, vitamin zinc, they're really important for gut health as well as for mental well-being. If you're somebody that's struggling with things like diarrhea, think about electrolytes and having water-soluble vitamins that you might lose through having lots of loose stools. If you're constipated, you've got toxin build-up, so you need to be thinking about that as well. You don't want your stools to be sitting in the digestive system for too long. So these are some of the supplements that I like and that I use in clinic quite a lot. We've got ashwagandha. It's a lovely herb for reducing cortisol naturally in the body. There isn't a food that will directly reduce cortisol. All the lifestyle tips that I talked about in the previous slides, they will help to reduce cortisol. Getting that sort of day-night balance, etc., is really important. But ashwagandha is also another lovely way to help balance cortisol. Just be careful it interacts with things like thyroxine. So if you're on any medication, please do check before you start any supplements. You can ask me and I can help you. Omega-3 is a great one, a fish oil. Magnesium can be lovely. It can really help to calm a stressed gut. So magnesium glycinate is really lovely for calming a stressed gut. Magnesium oxide or citrate, better for somebody with constipation. L-theanine is a lovely calming herb again. A prebiotic, so the xenobiotics, the prebiotic fiber that I recommend, it's the one that I use every day. I've used it for years. It's fantastic. So a good prebiotic fiber. Again, we will talk about these a bit more next week when we're looking at replace, but a prebiotic is basically feeding the good bacteria in your gut and helping to balance and calm an inflamed gut. And then I've also put on here a really lovely one by Invivo, which is the stool testing lab that we use. And this one is their Mind and Mood supplement. It's a lovely one. It's a probiotic that is geared towards mental balance. So it helps to calm anxiety and things like that. But it's actually a probiotic. It's not nothing more weird or wacky than that. But it does work. It does get really lovely feedback. So another option, if you're looking to support that gut-brain axis, could be through a probiotic instead of using a herb. So I hope that you have found this helpful. There's a lot of information on here. I will share the slides for today as well as a PDF, so you can scroll through and just remember, various bits if you want to check some information there on the slides. Obviously, you can use the group chat to ask me any questions with absolute pleasure. And I'll share the sleep guide and the essential oils on here as well for you. And I will see you all on Wednesday night for the workshop. Got lots to chat about again, so please do try and attend 7:45 via Zoom on Wednesday. And let me know what you think of this video in the chat this week. All right, take care.